We're going. What's up, wrestling fans? Two Bros Wrestling Show coming at you live on a Sunday night. Kevin, what's going on, brother?
Man, everything seems to be going on. Most of that in the world of wrestling is centered around WWE, WrestleMania. We are actually taking a break in our wall-to-wall WrestleMania coverage for a week because before we get right back into that and more on what those shows are going to look like for WrestleMania season at the end of our show. But tonight's show, we're going to pivot. AEW has a pay-per-view coming up. Maybe not the best timing for AEW right this close to Mania. We're going to talk about all of that, including what matches we know, what ones we're predicting, and who we think will win and lose and why, all coming up in our main event a little bit later on.
Oh, let's do it.
We got to hit that opening bell, though. You know how we do.
Breaking news. What's been going on this week? Absolutely nothing, right? I mean, it's got to be a slow week for wrestling news.
I have to say, it is a nice cross-section this week of news. We're not just centered on any one promotion. We're going to spread a lot of love around this week, starting with TNA. 13 months ago, TNA shocked fans with the sudden dismissal of then President Scott D'Amore, and we've had a year of relative stability since then. But over the last month, that has changed. Numerous firings, behind-the-scene changes, leadership changes. Most of these are names that are behind the scenes that fans won't maybe recognize unless you just follow the business side of the industry. But last month, we did have a few office personnel who were, known names to wrestling fans, and that included Josh Matthews, Christy Hemme, a longtime TNA employee, gone. And then the promotion replaced the then president, Anthony Saccone, with Carlos Silva. This week, Silva, as his new role of president, sent out an internal memo noting 8 other firings. One of those was executive producer Ariel Schneer. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Schneer was basically head of creative. He is being replaced by someone you will know, Hunter Johnston. You might know him as Delirious.
Right there.
Delirious is taking that spot now. Biggest shock, maybe, though, as far as those folks that were let go, was the departure of Gail Kim, who was head of talent relations. Gail is so synonymous with TNA. She is a TNA Hall of Famer. It's been several decades of loyalty of Gail Kim, and now she's gone. Did you hear who's taking that job, though? Who's over talent relations? You'll recognize that name, too, as it's one Tommy Dreamer, the innovator of Violence.
Okay. Huh.
So I guess one legend to another, I don't know. But poor Gail.
Yeah, they couldn't afford Gail anymore, so they went with Tommy? I don't understand that.
I'm not sure I understand that either. While on the topic of exits, though, this one, we're going to hit AEW because Saraya announced this past week that she is no longer with AEW. The news was first broke on the inaugural episode of the former Pages podcast. As we reported a few weeks ago here on our broadcast, Saraya's brother, Zach Knight, was recently released from AEW. Saraya didn't necessarily mention that as having anything to do with it. That wasn't part of her announcement. Instead, she was, spreading the Kool-Aid of Tony's great. We love AEW. Never say never. I could be back. But she's not done anything in ring in a while.
No.
And while I love Paige and was happy to see her be able to come back from her injury, this was not a Daniel Bryan style of I'm coming back and having this big run. She never really in this, and I'm not slagging on the lady at all, but she never seemed to get her footing quite the same in AEW as what she was as Paige.
Agreed. Never really took off. Although I think it's benefited Harley because she kind of has something going on now.
Hey, man, I love feeling the wrath of Harley Cameron. I think Harley Cameron is fantastic. And if that is one thing we can thank Saraya for, then thank you, Saraya, because you gave us the gift of Harley Cameron.
Yep.
I told you we're going to spread the love around. Let's move to WWE. Three stories three different federations, specifically the WWE Hall of Fame. As we reported in our last show, it is returning this year as its own ticketed event. However, this week brings the news that the cost of that ticketed event may be a bridge too far for some fans. Reports are that WWE is having difficulty selling Hall of Fame tickets. Part of the reason, I know, Doug, I mentioned to you last week, I think we talked on air about how much those run you. You can't get in that building for less than $300, which might not seem terrible. But when you factor in the fact that they waited a while to even put tickets on sale, if you're already in town before you knew that you were going to have to buy a ticket for Hall of Fame, you've probably, as you noted last week, dropped several $1,000s at this point. I mean, gosh, it's 2 nights of Mania, 2 nights of NXT, WWE World, Raw, SmackDown, Undertaker Deadman Show, Roast of WrestleMania. You could just go on and on and on, and you've probably already spent your money in $300 to get in, $700 for the good seats. It's probably over your budget. Last I saw, they were only at around 2,300 tickets sold for that event. And the thing that worries me is that I don't want this failure, that if it ends up being a failure, chase them back into doing it after SmackDown in the middle of the ring, all that nonsense, because that would be a shame if their lack of planning by doing it kind of a rush job would make them think it actually had something to do with the format, which I do not think is going to be the issue if they don't sell tickets.
That I don't see that either. It's that last minute. Hey, we're going to do this way this year.
Yeah. Can we get some more money, please? Yeah. Not everybody does that.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be a shame. Hey, but congrats to Major League Wrestling. Boom. Fourth federation.
Oh, boom, you say. Boom.
Congratulations to them for not having the ticketing issue. MLW's Battle Riot 7 is scheduled for April 5th. Last week, they sold it out, and the venue they had sold out so quickly that they have realized the demand being so strong, it shattered all of their previous box office records. It prompted the company to move the entire event to a larger destination in order to move more tickets and to satiate demand. So Battle Riot 7 will now take place at Thunder Studios Arena in Long Beach. Original tickets will be honored, but now there are additional tickets, if you missed out, available. The rest of us outside of the LA area can watch live on YouTube on April 5th.
Woo-hoo.
Back to AEW real quick. AEW announced this week that it is getting ready to celebrate in the month of April. The April 16th edition of Dynamite will be branded Spring Breakthrough. And as Tony Schiavone said this past week during Dynamite, this will be the celebration of Dynamite becoming the longest running weekly pro wrestling show in Turner sports history. You can read between... let me run this by you. Remember how WWE used to do the whole longest running episodic thing to get around? I think was bandstand or something that there was some reason they worded it that way. So see if you can read between the lines of this. Dynamite will become on April 16th the longest running weekly pro wrestling show in Turner sports history. That they're trying to let you know that they've been on longer than Nitro. I don't know why they can't say that. Hey, we beat Nitro, but that's between the lines. I think it's something probably to celebrate because it's significant, sure, but say that hey, we've been on at this point longer than Nitro. Who would have thought it? Celebrate that. Don't come up with. There might be a legal reason. Maybe the WWE probably owns Nitro. I imagine. That's
fair enough.
Probably. Probably why they can't use it. But if you're interested into why to celebrate, and you're just making a big deal of the fact that hey, they've been on longer than Nitro, crack a cold one and join them on April 16th for Spring Breakout.
It's such a weird sideways way to say all that.
I know.
Wrestling. What are you going to do?
Well, now we're going to go to an amateur story. This is something we don't do very often. Amateur wrestling news for the NCAA. This week, Gable Stevenson. Did you hear about Gable?
No.
So Gable Stevenson, Olympic gold medalist and former NXT experiment, failed in his bid to win a third national championship. Stevenson was upset in the championship final by Oklahoma State's Wyatt Hendrickson. Stevenson had tried his hand, of course, at pro wrestling and very, very famously failed. He retired from college competition. He signed with WWE. WWE made a huge deal on this guy being maybe the next Brock Lesnar. They pushed him front and center. He had one match that actually aired on NXT. It was notoriously bad, and we never saw him again. He was let go from WWE in May of 2024. He then decided he was going to try to enter the NFL despite having never played organized football. He tried out for the Buffalo Bills, but was released at the end of last year's NFL preseason. This led Stevenson back to college in Minnesota to finish out his senior year in an attempt to win a third national championship. He tore through his year, and until this upset, dating back to pre-retirement, he was like 70-0. Like he was on a 70-match winning streak, which is another reason to make this final senior year NCAA final such a shocking thing. It was looking like he was just going to cakewalk to it, and then it did not happen.
I've talked about like this with CM Punk and his transition from WWE to MMA. And I wonder if it goes the other way too, because I imagine after so many years of pulling punches and protecting the other guy, when it's your turn to actually go in there and try and legit like wrestle or fight the other guy, you're still used to pulling punches and you maybe don't fight the way that you should be fighting. I wonder if it goes the other way after Stevenson had spent so much time in developmental learning how to wrestle, that more of that stuck with him and it was less instinctual, when he got back into like amateur wrestling again. And I just wonder if that goes both ways.
Well, neither amateur or professional wrestling help him with NFL football. Maybe he'll show up on a hockey rink next. Who knows what's next for Gable Stevenson at this point? Not a third championship, but impressive run nonetheless. Nice attempt.
Yeah.
Congratulations are in order to Ricochet and Samantha Irvin, the AEW talent and the former WWE ring announcer, tied the knot over the past week. And congratulations to the happy couple.
Yay.
And then finally, Doug, when I say we're all over the map, this is also nothing related to anything we've talked about before, but we'll talk legislative news.
Yes. The Two Bros Legislation Show. Love it.
Have you heard about the Ric Flair Act?
No, but I really want to now.
Lawmakers in North Carolina have introduced the Ric Flair Act, the name, of course, after the most famous wrestler associated with the state of North Carolina, was filed in the North Carolina Senate, and if passed, would earmark $500,000 to study the feasibility of creating a pro wrestling Hall of Fame museum in North Carolina.
Okay, sure.
Hey, to that, there's only really one thing to say, Doug, and I think you've already said it.
Woo!
I mean, come on. If you're going to have a physical pro wrestling museum, North Carolina seems like the place I would. I mean,
it really does. Yeah.
For this old NWA Mid-Atlantic, mark. Yeah. Where else? That's the birthplace of pro wrestling to me, is the Carolinas. Yes. Put it up in Charlotte, and Doug and I will do a road trip and report on it on the Two Pro Wrestling Show.
We'll do a yearly pilgrimage.
And with that trip around the many federations and amateur ranks and legislative halls and, gosh, a little bit of everything in the opening bell, we go to our main event.
Let me pull up some
Dynasty.
Some Dynasty. I'm not even sure how many are we fully card yet? I mean, I know Tony's going to have like 17 matches and Dynasty will last like 15 hours.
So let's talk a few of the possibilities and likelihoods before we get into the actual settled card, because we are a week out from the show as of tonight, and the official match card is sitting at 5. So
are so not. Yeah.
That's not a Tony Khan pre-show, as we all know. So we got some some guesses to do. So the first thing I want to talk about here is the fact that thus far we have no discernible opponent for the former Miss Sasha Banks. Mercedes Moné has been pretty much a linchpin of every
Mm-hmm.
premium live event that Tony has put
Right.
on. 4 belts Monet, right? 4 or 5. What is she at
4,
this point?
yeah. I think 4, yeah.
So she's going to have to be on this somehow. I have heard rumblings that they might be looking at a title versus title, one of the titles versus Athena, the Ring of Honor champion.
Oh,
I don't know if I want to see that with only a week's build. Monet
yeah.
name dropped her last week, so that could be where they're going. And I'm hoping they're more putting a first couple of blocks down for a longer road and not rush
Mm-hmm.
this, because watching Mercedes Monet attempt to go up to 5 belts or 6 belts, whatever it is, by taking Athena,
Mm-hmm.
I would be all about that.
I would love to see the former Ember Moon out there with mixing it up with the former Sasha Banks. That would be great.
I mean, I would love to see it happen. It might happen. If so, if that is a match that occurs, I don't know that I can see Athena coming out on top of that,
Mm-mm.
just because I would feel like Monet is not going to lose to
Mm-hmm.
a non AEW talent, which becomes the awkward thing about the whole AEW Ring of Honor split. We all know how
Right.
wonderful Athena is. For most fans, though, when was the last time we saw Athena on our television?
Exactly. Exactly. That's what I was thinking of. She's
That's the
been.
problem with the arrangement, really. The current
Mm-hmm.
arrangement as it stands is that you try to work in these ROH folks, which that you should. You should keep the
Mm-hmm.
brand distinctive, which you also should. But if 85% of your audience only knows one of the brands, it's hard to work those other 15% of your talent into those cards and have it feel like it means what it should.
Absolutely.
So yes, if this happens, we're both going Mercedes, right?
We're both calling Mercedes. Yeah, some build would be good though because there's a lot of people not even going to know who Athena is. You know,
Sadly, but yes,
they're not going to
100%.
know. They're not going to care. Like you just said that the ROH transition and some build would be good to get her some airtime. I just don't know that that'll happen with a week left. I mean, what kind of build can you build in a week?
This next one, though, Doug, is a match that I can't blame Tony for not having enough build for, because apparently this was the way we were headed. And then he had to change due to injury. So it looked very much like we were getting the tag titles defended, and the Hurt Syndicate would be defending against Brian Cage and Lance
Oh yeah.
Archer. Except Brian Cage was wrestling Chris Masters on an independent show somewhere and got hurt. So now the reports are we will still get a tag team title match, but instead the Hurt Syndicate will be taking on Big Bill and the bounty hunter Brian Keith. Hurt Syndicate's got to win that if that's the way they go, but it's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
shame because I actually think the seeing Bobby Lashley square off against Brian
Yes.
Cage, that would be what you'd want to see.
Mm-hmm. Got to watch that master lock. Get you every time though.
um, and the last possible match, and this is one that has not necessarily been rumored for this particular show, but it has to happen because at some point, Anthony Bowens is going to return and get his comeuppance on Max Caster.
Mm-hmm.
This possibly could be the show. It wouldn't surprise me for Anthony Bowens to show up as soon as Dynamite on Wednesday, make the challenge for this weekend. We all get the chance. Let's go, Max. You are the best wrestler in the world. It's kind of funny and kind
Mm-hmm.
of, I don't know, feels maybe a 7-8 months beyond its sell by date.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's, I mean, I was a huge fan of the Acclaim for a while, and
So I
then
was
at
gonna
some
say,
point, I don't know what happened. They lost their mojo.
yeah, it's like everybody loved the Acclaim, then something happened to the Acclaim, and I can't quite pinpoint it either. It's like, you walk into a room and something's not quite right. It's like somebody's been in there and moved something, but you're not sure what's been moved, but the room is
It's not
not right
right.
anymore.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Acclaim.
And because of that, do you think a whole lot of people care about the feud of the two tag team partners splitting up? Because it feels like that at one point could have been a big storyline, and now
Could
it
have been
feels like
hot.
let's just go ahead and do it already. Let's just get it over with.
That exactly, like you said, way past its sell-by date at this point.
So if it does happen, I do think that Pro Wrestling 101 is that Max Caster has to eat his words, and Anthony Bowen returns victorious. You don't return and do the job.
No, you don't. You don't. So if that happens, that's the way that will definitely go down.
Now we are going from the suspected card
to the actual card. Gotcha.
Actual card. I want to start what we have already official are a bunch of title matches, which is good. I want to talk about what, to me, we'll start with the least of these, and that's just because I'm not a big trios fan, but the AEW Trios Championship is on the line. You have your champions, the Death Riders, Claudio Castagnoli, Pac, Wheeler Yuta, taking on Rated FTR, Cope, Cash Wheeler, Dax Harwood. The North Carolina boys got this one.
Yeah,
I mean, there's new champions.
It's time. It's time. It's time for the Death Riders to start falling apart. I think this might be where it happens all the way down the card, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
I mean, Cope couldn't obviously handle Mox on his own, but he's still a well-known name and talent in the AEW sphere. This is the consolation prize, I think, for Cope. FTR is not really around the world titles currently. They need something to do too. They might play the whole, North Carolina good old boys angle and have them run with some 6 men for a while to just keep them all relevant. And then, as you said, let the Death Riders start to slowly fall apart. But I think this is a title change.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And everything that Mox and company have put Cope and company through recently, the title change.
This next one, I might be going title change as well, Doug, and that is the championship of Daniel Garcia, that TNT championship. He is defending it against Adam Cole. I'm hesitant on saying it's going to be a title change only because Adam Cole has been away for so long that there was one point in time I would have considered Adam Cole a surefire main eventer around that world title picture. And now I don't know if I'm having trouble seeing Adam Cole at this stage as a champion or is ready to be a champion again. Does Tony Khan? I think it could happen here, and maybe it'll restart something or click something in Adam Cole as a singles wrestler. I don't know. I'm 50-50 on this one. I want to go because I have to not straddle the fence. I want to go Cole, but I wouldn't put much money on it.
See, I'm going to go ahead and go Garcia just for that uncertainty that you have about Cole. It's the same thing with me. Like Adam Cole should be more than he is in AEW, but then there was the awkward rundown and like jack up my leg, my ankle, whatever it was. And then the whole thing with MJF and all that just sort of fell apart. And as wrestling stories do sometimes, it's just kind of like left dangling and they try and wrap it up. And that doesn't really work out. Again, it's like walking into the room and knowing somebody moved something in this room. My AEW room, people have been moving stuff in here for a while now. I can look around and say, things are different in here. Things are wrong. I just can't pinpoint what they are. Say it with Acclaim. I can say it with Adam Cole too. So I think Garcia is going to keep that.
I want to just be clear here. We're huge Adam Cole marks, but I also want to call a spade a spade. Since his injury, again, no fault of his own, but he was off for a while. He looks kind of frail. He doesn't look – he never was a body guy. He's not a big muscle head, but he looks particularly not out of shape by any means, but he doesn't look intimidating in a fashion that he once did. And maybe it's just getting some more reps underneath him or whatever. And again, I'm not trying to body shame Adam Cole, who, would be fortunate to have the physique of Adam Cole. I'm just saying he doesn't look like himself yet. And I want the old Adam Cole back and him to be healthy and I want him back around the world title scene. I want to see like an actual payoff to the MJF storyline instead of it just being dropped. But That's why I'm hesitant to say he goes over here, but it could be the start of trying to build him back. But I can't argue with you if you go Garcia.
Yeah, what would be great is some soul searching, and Cole goes on a journey at this point and kind of flips with what's been going on and starts working towards I got to get my act together, straighten up Doug's room, and get something back together.
Do you think in order to do that he might need to break away from his faction?
Yes,
Do you think that? I mean,
yes,
and again, I know it sounds like we're just like hating on them all, but I
we're
love them
not.
too. But and I even love
Yes,
the whole Roddy comedy gimmick and stuff. But maybe the serious Adam Cole that needs to be back in the world title picture needs away from the more mid card, Adam act in order
yeah,
for us to buy into it again.
agreed.
I like your idea of a soul searching journey where he maybe realizes that
Mhm.
guys, this is fun, but this isn't doing me any good. I need to
Right.
find myself again.
And I got to do this on my own. Love you all, but this is something I got to do on my own. Parts ways.
And then,
And then we see
despite
a
the
couple.
fact that Doug and I disagree on maybe the way this one goes, but do agree on the fact that Adam Cole is not at the top of his game right now, I still believe that this could possibly be one of the under the radar show stealers just because of the talent involved.
Under the radar, sure. Yeah, could be.
Doug, we mentioned ROH earlier. This is an ROH talent who is not low profile, probably the only
Not
ROH
at all.
talent that is not low profile, and that is the world champion, Chris Jericho, taking on Bandito in a title versus mask match for the ROH World Championship. Doug, I think that Bandito keeps his mask and wins the world title.
So yeah, I totally understand putting an ROH title, the ROH title, on Jericho. Let's get some more eyes on that product with a very recognizable name. I don't know if Jericho's really moved the needle on the ROH product that Tony Khan
He,
has.
he says he has.
He says he has, but there's learning tree and there's reality, right? And I'm not sure what the reality is. You know, but I don't see, they seem very interested or invested in the majority of their luchas. So I
Yeah.
don't see them unmasking one.
Losing them. And
Yeah.
Bandito is a former ROH world champion in the
Hmm.
old school ROH days,
Yep.
and was a talent that was so sought after that there was a bidding war between Tony Khan and WWE. Like Bandito, I know for those of you who see the stop and start because you maybe don't see everything that happens on ROH, it's maybe hard to think that that Bandito's as big a deal as what he is. He is. The fact he is a former champion, I think that he could be the right person for Jericho to drop that title to. That could still mean something, and that the average AEW fan might know
Hmm.
that a ROH watcher doesn't. You don't have to be an ROH watcher to
Right.
know Bandito, and that could be a good transition. I'm actually kind of hopeful for it, and let's see where Jericho can go to next, and what Bandito can do with the ROH championship.
Yeah.
We got a lot of championship
We do.
changes
Yeah.
predicted here. So
Hmm.
this next one for me is not one of those. And that is Timeless Tony Storm for the
Oh.
first time moving beyond the Mariah May world. She's been mostly locked in over the last year and a half.
Hmm.
It's sad to say goodbye to that program, but all good things come to an end. I like this as a step down program for her because they've done a pretty good job, in my opinion, of building up Megan Bain in a very short period of time as a legit big powerhouse threat.
Hmm.
But end of the day, she's not going to be big enough to take out Timeless Tony Storm this soon after Tony winning it again.
That's just it. First of all, you don't go through this whole arc of Tony, old school Tony. Well, let me even back up a little bit further. Timeless Tony morphing into old school Tony with some sort of like weird PTSD, but then we find out it's not anything, but it's all her massive acting returns to the Timeless character just to get her massive revenge and set things straight. You don't get that just to drop it like a pay-per-view or two later. It's not happening. I really do like Megan Bain character,
I do.
like what they've done with her, like you say, in a short amount of time, but it's not her time, not yet.
Do you, while we were talking about her, do you see Megan Bain as Tony Khan's makeup of what he had hoped to do with the Jade Cargill? Like he sees this as an opportunity to take a Amazonian type of figure and build her into his female Goldberg, which is where we were
Yes.
definitely headed with Cargill before she left him. I can see that happening again with Megan Bain at a certain point.
I can totally see that because Tony's got, yeah, yeah, she's got a great look. She's got great size. They could totally do this with her, and I say,
And let's be
it
fair
will be
too.
her time.
She also, at this point in her career, actually looks like she has more in-ring skills than Jade Cargill did.
Yes,
So there
yes.
might be actually more clay in which to mold something than what he had with Jade, which took a lot longer. But just not yet.
Not
Not yet.
not yet. It will be her time. I feel this in AEW, but not yet.
Which brings us to a match that probably should be on WrestleMania, I suppose, just because it's a triple threat. But we have a three-way match for the AEW International Championship, and very likely your match of the night. Let's call it now.
Mhm.
This is
Yeah,
match of the night.
that's what I'm saying. The early Garcia Cole has potential to be a sleeper, match,
Sleeper. This is the
but
one.
not
This was
this.
the one that, yeah. If
Yeah.
this doesn't deliver, fans will be shocked. This will be the disappointing match if it's not the match of the night, because you have your champion, Kenny Omega, defending against Ricochet and the speedball Mike Bailey. Doug, I know you haven't seen a ton of wrestling lately due to other commitments. Have you caught enough of Mike Bailey to see what's
I've,
special about the guy?
I've caught enough just to go, oh, okay, I get it. I get it. So this one, when I'm looking at the card, this will be that one where, regardless, and I know I go to this well a lot, but regardless of who wins this, we as fans will be the winners of this match. However, I don't see Kenny dropping that belt yet. Not
Not yet.
yet.
But there is a good way to continue a story here. When you do have a three-way, a newcomer like Speedball Mike Bailey won't lose anything from getting a pin by Kenny
Exactly.
Omega, and that would still allow Ricochet to continue a program with Kenny Omega if they choose to go that route. But like with Tony Storm, we have a lot of changes predicted on this show. These are titles that are staying in place. Kenny and Tony have nothing to worry about in my mind either.
Yeah. That's really not a lot of matches. Oh wait, there's one more.
We got the main event, Doug.
Yes.
One that I think will be a whole lot more interesting than the last AEW pay-per-view main event, and that was the top. And no offense again to Copeland, but Jon Moxley versus Swerve Strickland is more really in Jon Moxley's wheelhouse, because Swerve Strickland will bring the violence that Jon Moxley kind of feeds off of. I think Jon's done a good job as champion, always has, but he does have a particular flavor of match where he excels more. And if you don't wrestle that style of match, sometimes you end up with what you did with like the Copeland match, and it's like, maybe not a as multi-dimensional match as you would like. This, I don't think will have that problem. As far as who wins, who do you think is coming out here? Is it Mox's time to drop? I would actually love to see Swerve get a second run at the title.
So
I'm torn here. I can argue this both ways.
I can argue this both ways, but I'm going to argue for Swerve here. I think it's, Tony didn't throw a lot of money at Swerve to get him to stay, only for him to drop after he drops the belt, to get him to stay if there weren't plans for Swerve at some point in the future. So I think it's time to hand back off to Swerve, let Mox get some well-deserved, like a breather. And this may be time to clean house with the entire Death Riders, because I think Death Riders, like we said earlier, are going to drop their trios championship. Mox will drop his championship here, and in the Death Riders go into free fall. And then whose house is it again, Kevin? It's Swerve's house.
Swerve's house. I know that Tony put a lot of a lot of manpower into the idea that the Death Riders storyline could be what turns things around for AEW, and
Mm-hmm.
let's just ride Moxley and the Death Riders for a while. I do think it was interesting. I do think it made for some compelling television. I don't know that it had the legs to be one of those things like the Bloodline or something that you can ride for
Mm-hmm.
a whole year, because it's kind of weird for me to be agreeing with you on the point of it's time for them to, like, because if you look at the calendar and go back, it's actually not been as long as it maybe feels, but it does kind of feel
And
like it's ran its course. And I
and
don't know
and
if
it's
Tony thinks he's got more mileage in it, but I don't think it does.
I don't think it because it was a very cool idea. Love the concept. Again, I keep going back to this world tonight too, but somebody came in and moved my Death Rider stuff around too. Something's out of place. I don't know if it's the Maria Shafir like Funko Pop I have or what, but something's in the wrong place now.
Well, it's probably Will or Yuta, because I think you had the most problem with Yuta going week to
And
week.
I
You
love
loved Yuta,
Yuta.
hated what they were doing with Yuta. What are they doing with Yuta? I think that Yuta is what's moved things around in your AEW room.
Yuta is a great talent. I don't understand what they do with him from time to from week to week. I don't get it.
I agree that if
But
John loses this, though, it is maybe best for him to do a bit of a refresh. He's almost like a break glass in case of emergency. Like they
he
pull him
really
out because
is.
he's dependable that you can put him up at the top. But I
Hmm.
think that Swerve Strickland showed in his first run that he is also
Yes.
that guy. And the fans, we've talked a couple of times tonight, whether it's Death Riders, whether it is Adam Copeland as a main eventer, whether
Hmm.
it's the acclaimed. We've talked about a lot of storylines and stories running their course. Adam Cole as part of the Undisputed Era, like maybe get
Hmm.
away from the comedy. Swerve Strickland still works for me on every level. There's nothing about the Swerve Strickland gimmick that is grown old. So Swerve Strickland as world champion offers up a chance for more matches with MJF. You can reheat can you imagine Hangman losing his mind if Swerve Strickland manages to get that title again?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think anyone, as much as and as long as they feuded, I can't imagine at this point that anyone would be upset if Hangman Page and Swerve had another match or
Hmm.
reignite that. There's a lot of ways you can go with this. Ricochet, gosh, would you like to see Will Ospreay title, go
Yes, I
for
would.
champion versus
Yes.
champion? Yeah,
Yes.
just absolutely. Swerve Strickland is the man that needs to be the champion again. So, Doug, you and I are in agreement on that, and that is of 5 title matches. I think we have 3 title changes predicted.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you like to see a reshuffling of the card, reordering of the booking philosophy, if you want to see a reset at WrestleMania season for a company that isn't WWE, I do believe that is what Tony Khan is going to use AEW's Dynasty for.
I think so. I think it's a good time to refresh. We get new seasons of WWE coming up. Might as well do it with AEW as well, and maybe even Ring of Honor.
Maybe even Ring of Honor. Let's see how it all shakes out. It is happening
Yep.
next Sunday. But I hear you do say next Sunday. Isn't that when the Two Bros Wrestling show's on? We will get to
Oh,
that in a minute.
oh,
Opposite our big finish. Doug, I know that we have you haven't seen a ton of wrestling. I have
I,
not seen the full slate of wrestling, but I do have some predictions, or I do have my categories filled. I will say that.
I don't have all my boxes checked this week, but I want to roll back to something from last week that I hadn't seen yet. Talking about Mox, Death Riders, Copeland, all that. So I did get to see enough of the Copeland Mox AEW like dynamite match. That spot with the bar, not the bar, the nails, the nails in the board with the rusty nails in it. Suddenly I'm watching The Simpsons, right? And there's somebody chasing somebody with a board with legit rusty nails in it. I think I understand the logic because it's a very wide base, and you go back to that whole like meta nails thing, right? If there's enough distribution, it's not going to do what it did, but it wasn't set right. It was just all like spiky and gnarly. So when Mox takes this, and by the way, this is my botch, but when Mox takes this, I don't even think he had intended for what happened to happen because I think this is a man that's in genuine pain when you see his face after that. and this was so close to his spine. This was just reckless and ridiculous because was it gimmicked? I think maybe somebody thought it was gimmicked. I have to think that, but not in the fashion that it should have been. What he could pull
When
through.
Wheeler Yuta is trying to pull the bat
Yes.
away from your back and the skin is coming with it,
And you're trying to get away from him. Uh,
that was uncomfortable to watch. You talk about John's face. You see my own face watching it. Like,
yes.
this isn't even a pay-per-view where you're expecting like maybe a
No.
ratcheting it up of the violence. This was television on prime time on a Wednesday night. Where do you go from there? I mean, do you like, we
What?
start shooting folks? I mean, sometimes it's like, for those that like slam on AEW for the level of violence, you're really just handing your detractors ammunition when you do
Mhm.
spots like that in primetime television on Turner Network.
I mean, was it a very cool legendary spot that will live on in wrestling infamy?
100
Absolutely.
100%.
Was it necessary? Not at all. Was it
Agree.
safe? It sure didn't look like it because I mean that looked like inches away from the spine, if even inches. That was like a paralysis waiting to happen.
And the blood was just flowing. So I mean, it didn't look gimmicked in any way
But
at all.
then,
I think he just
but
like was willing to land on a bat full of spikes, like a bed of nails, and play it like a parlor trick. But it didn't look like it
it
went the
didn't.
way that he expected.
I have to believe that that was not the way that was supposed to go. It was more a bed of nails, kind of like, equal distribution, but you can't get that distribution when things are all gnarled like that. That is my botch. And I know it was last week, but I want to swing back around since I hadn't seen it when we recorded last week.
So I'm going to do my botch on something that you also haven't seen, but you may have heard.
Okay.
I know that Doug doesn't mind spoilers, so
No, I'm gonna
this
spoil.
won't bother him a bit. And I was almost at a loss as to whether or not this should be my botch of the week, because overall I love the way this is going. But this is what happened on the end of SmackDown between
Mm.
CM Punk, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins. Have you heard about the contract signing?
No, 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 no.
So I want to see this, your face in real time,
Okay.
to
Okay.
react to this, to see if I am correct in like thinking of this as a botch instead of, oh no, that's really cool. Because in some ways they played it off really well. But as they have the contract signing, everyone else is just, yeah, I'm, mad at you. I'm
Mhm.
going to put my name on it.
Right.
And CM Punk is just taking his time, like looking through things. And eventually Paul Heyman says, it's in there. What you're looking for is in there.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
they make a note at the very end, because CM Punk made it clear, okay, thank
Uh-huh.
you, but this is not my favor. You still owe me the favor. So that storyline's still out there. I thought this was the payoff to that. But
Uh-huh.
what Heyman got into the contract for them is that, yes, CM Punk, you are in fact a WrestleMania main eventer. Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and CM Punk are going on last. We talked about the road to WrestleMania, what we were excited about, the build we thought was good. We all liked where this was headed. We all liked the three-way. I said that maybe it needed a little something extra. This wasn't what
Mhm.
I really meant. I suggested maybe have it as whoever comes out on top is the next in line for a championship.
Mhm.
I love all three of these men. I like the feud. I think this was a good thing for them to be doing in light of having a world title match. But that is what should make you the main event, is having a world title match or ending a giant feud like a bloodline feud or something. But
Mhm.
not. I mean, I know poor Gunther has been hamstrung in this latest rung, and I don't think the Uso, the Jimmy thing is working. But then you have your women who also are
Mhm.
world
That's what I was
champions.
thinking.
Like
Yes.
one of you, if not your men's world championship, your women's world champion, one of those should be last. I don't know that I like the three of these guys as much as I love them, as much as I think this match will deliver, as much as I think that it will probably feel like a main event while it's happening. The initial like announcement of it just left me like, well, that's not the main event. That's not a championship match. That shouldn't be the way we end the night. But probably Saturday night, since
Yeah.
we know that Sunday's got to be a
Cody
Cena.
Cena.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's got to be Cody Cena.
Think about
I
this.
re-
Tell me I'm wrong if you disagree with me, but I don't know that I want him to. I don't know that that's even the way that CM Punk really wants to be a WrestleMania main eventer.
I would think that it's not, because it's a triple threat, and it's forced, very shoehorned. Yes, it's a main event. We're going on last, and I do think it would be night one of WrestleMania. But I don't like that. I'd rather see one of the women's matches
Yes.
headline,
Yeah,
and then
put Tiffany and Charlotte, or put
mhm,
the three-way match would be great. But I
yeah.
can't imagine that the CM Punk of old, who was always like, it wasn't really that I wanted to go on last. I always took his like, I want to main event WrestleMania as like, I want to be the guy at the end of the show holding up the title with the fireworks going off and the sign in the background. That's what he meant, the actual main
Hmm.
eventer coming out on top, and
Right.
not just I'm going on last, which this almost feels like if they want to say, oh, CM Punk finally got his main event, this is with an asterisk, I think.
It is.
So I didn't like it.
I don't like it either.
Let me talk about something I do like instead of old man waving his fist at the
Talk to
clouds.
me. Yes.
Performance of the week. I'm going to give first my honorable mention to El Grande Americano from the Gulf of
That is
America.
good.
That was just for a mid-card comedy, like obvious we want to get Pinta or Ray Phoenix, who's debut, like some lucha, or maybe a legend like Rey Mysterio's where this is headed. Like somebody's going to give
Yes.
Chad Gable his comeuppance, but I still like the whole, like, again, if you're going to do a mid-card like gimmick to have a little bit of comedy in on all the drama, you're going to get a good match out of this and some good
Yes.
laughs. So I'm all for it. But performance of the week, Cena, Rhodes. I thought that in week two, I know that I picked Cena for week one, despite the fact that he got some internet flack from
Mhm.
people, justifiably. My colleague here being one of them that had him as a botch. I thought that week two was much, much better, and both men, I think, made that a fact. I think Cody was even more involved in making this my performance of the week. It was a tag team and not just John Cena trying to, get 20 years worth of storyline out in 20 minutes.
Mhm.
This felt more natural and like we're smooth sailing now. Surely everyone liked this one and it won't be as divisive.
Well, I have to say that I do have this in my notes. Cena ruins wrestling, as as my performance of the week. Because
Fantastic.
I did like this one so much better than the first go round. This kind of fell into place a little bit better for me, and it worked so much better just all around. And it was like, okay, there we go. Notes were taken, steps were made to correct things.
Yeah.
Everything in my WWE room is where it's supposed to be. Nobody's come in and mess with things there.
And if you didn't see our show on how heel Cena changes everything, go back a couple weeks in the archives, because when we speculated on what his motivation was going to be, we did talk about the whole, it's an abusive relationship. You've done this for 20 years. He did lay that out in week one, but he didn't go beyond that. And we had also said in our show that he needed to bring in The Rock. And why did he sell out to The Rock? And the championship has to mean something. That Ric Flair, current tie that he has with the number of world championships, that has to be like, selfishly, I want to break this and rub it in your face. He brought every last bit of what we had hoped to hear that didn't get said in week one. He brought it out in week two, and Cody responded exactly as a main event face should respond.
Yes, much better.
Perfect work by them, and still several more weeks to go to continue on that strong performance.
Yes. So, Kevin, I was going to say, I haven't seen enough wrestling to call a match of the week this week. So what do you got for me?
I had several that I liked, but I am going to go with Stephanie Vaquer versus Fallon Henry on NXT on Tuesday night. It was Vaquer's second match of the night. She defended each of her championships. Her first match with Jada Parker was also great, but the main event segment with Henley was even better, and just further proof that NXT is ridiculous with the world's best women's division. They should have had this in the news, but if you haven't heard, WWE has apparently confirmed that there will be I mean, many years too late, but they did one all women's pay-per-view, and it was really well received. It was a great show. Evolution years ago at this point. They're doing a second one. I cannot imagine, Doug, that it will not be filled to the brim with NXT matches just by the sheer number of NXT women that are killing it right now.
HBK would make them a main event at WrestleMania for sure.
Hey, absolutely. Maybe give your buddy a call and say, hey, Heartbreak, do you think this is a good idea before I say it on SmackDown? But
Paul, no, don't do it.
Don't do it, man. Give the women their due.
But it's been done. So,
and with that, we are done. We're done for this week, and we have several weeks now of a different schedule, and that is because two reasons. One, we are in WrestleMania season. And
indeed.
Two, next Sunday, when we would normally be live, is when the show we just previewed, Dynasty, is taking place. So you see your schedule at the bottom of the screen. We will be live. Will not be live. We will be on air. You can find us on our YouTube channel and our Facebook channel with our next show, which is a analysis of the WWE Hall of Fame. All the inductees will want to go person by person, whether we think their induction is of merit, what our favorite matches, our favorite moments are. We just will be dropping it on demand instead of going live at 8 o'clock, so we don't go against AEW. Then
we don't want to do that.
We are back with our annual WrestleMania preview, and we're going to be doing that on a Thursday night to get you as close to WrestleMania as we possibly can. All the WrestleMania activity starts with WrestleMania SmackDown on Friday, and so you can start a day early with WrestleMania by joining us on Thursday in order to, right before Mania weekend, get the absolute latest and what we think is going to happen during the weekend, and then we will bookend our weekend of WrestleMania by going live before Raw, live before the new season of WWE begins, with a complete wrap on WrestleMania weekend and what we think of it. So again, not a conventional schedule, but it is truly all Mania all the time, and we're doing some different shows on some different nights in order to cover all of what we need to for WrestleMania at times that we're able to do so around the other wrestling programming that is out there. So join us for this ride, because it is going to be a fun one as we really hit the accelerator home stretch now, and we'll be back next weekend to talk Hall of Fame.
All gas, no brakes, rolling right towards WrestleMania, Kevin.
Can't wait. And can't wait to see you all again next weekend.
Thanks, everybody. Go watch some wrestling.